Ready? Aim!
There's too many!
Anyone see my mammoth?
Stubby!
Right. We are live. Hello.
Yo, yo, yo. Am I not muted for once?
You are not muted for once. Yeah. See,
Oh.
Carlo. When I share the screen, there's the bottom bar, the green bar going up and down there. That's me talking, and the other green bar below that is your volume. So there
Yo,
you go.
yo, yo.
There we go. I hope everyone's well. It's starting to become less frequent. It's been a little bit of a while. I think I did an episode a couple of weeks ago, didn't I? I can't remember. I forget nowadays. I'm getting old. Yeah, we're back for an episode today, and this one is going to be probably quite short. I've got other things I need to be getting on with and doing. And Carlo's got ultimately better things to be doing. Sat here talking rubbish with myself. But well, I think he does.
I'm back in a while.
Yeah. So how are you doing? How are you actually doing, Carlo?
Good. Yeah, you know, I'm busy in other aspects of life, but yeah, songs getting there. Had an up, and then I don't know, what do we even call it? Season 75. Season 75 came along at a bit of a random time, and it took me a little while before I even managed to play like my first game. I've been busy over the summer, so. Yeah, I'm just starting to ramp up my thoughts towards LGT, thinking about where season 3's at and stuff like that. So French Nationals couldn't have come at a better time to help give me a bit of perspective on what competitive song actually looks like right now. So yeah, very interested in what happened over there.
Mm. Okay then, so we will look through that, obviously. First of all, I mean, just out of pure curiosity now, morbid curiosity, if you will, this is the first time you've actually been on an episode for a while, and as you say, certainly since season 3. What were your? It's hard to say what your initial thoughts were, but what were your kind of like initial thoughts when you saw the patch? Obviously, from the perspective we were working on it, you know, I was obviously doing the live stream, but you were working on the site, right? So.
Yeah, obviously there are some things that, like, funnily enough, I don't think that people are discussing that much, but maybe I'm just not like super clued into what the community is talking about. My initial thoughts were mostly around Greyjoys. I think that, like, obviously Greyjoys was huge, right? The way that they really came in there and just tore the faction right down to the ground and rebuilt it back in under like a whole new guise, right? Like, did anything get not touched? Like, literally 100% of tactics cards are changed, 100% of units are changed because the pillage rule changed, and therefore the way every unit interacted with it, you know. Anyway.
Yeah, arguably some of the cards didn't change wording, but of course, like you know, Blessed Stone, Blessed Steel, but an academic choice because
So the total rebuild of the Greyjoy faction, actually, I thought was. I'll choose my words carefully because I know that you know, like, it's not like. I think that it was a positive step. Let's say that, right? Like, I don't think that it's necessarily a perfect implementation or anything like that, but I had long been of the opinion that the old way that pillage was working was something that the faction just couldn't get past, right? Like, they just didn't seem to be able to get that right. So it's much better to, like, rip that band-aid off and just, like, start again. So I think that was a really good move. And I know that a lot of Greyjoy players were, like, pretty heartbroken about, you know, like, can't remember Baron Black.
Black Tide.
Blind Baron. They've all got the same bloody names. Blind Baron. Pretty heartbroken about like the loss of him halving those hits. But I think that he was like a crutch of the whole way that the faction used to be performing, and that the faction can't move forward with him in that guise, right? Like you can't see past old Blind Baron to like balance the faction in the future properly. Now I'm not saying that like Greyjoys are better now. I'm not saying that it wasn't a nerf overall, etc. I'm actually not super clued into like how they're performing right now, other than the fact that nobody's really playing them that much. But effectively, I think that they're in a situation where they can be improved upon now, and the faction can be better understood and better balanced by CMON in the future. So I think that the Greyjoy step was a positive move forward. And in a large part, the Greyjoy change was one of the biggest actual changes of season 3, and we can talk about like the smaller rebalancing of the other factions. But I think that overall it kind of hit the broad strokes, and a lot of stuff was really good. I think that like the direction and intent were all good, and then there just are some big swing and misses, which we're going to talk about. Like there are some wildly powerful things which seem to have slipped through the cracks, or like just not been. I don't know, just like who would have thought it, you know? But I'm sure we'll talk about them because they're going to come up in like minutes. They're going to come up again and again and again when we talk about France, right? Like the community, there hasn't been a big event, right? Like not in my mind before France, right? Like this is the first singular big event. This isn't like, oh, like everybody's, decided what the meta is, and like this is everybody conforming to the meta. This is everybody individually, just like a matter of a handful of weeks after the patch, all individually going away and deciding what they think is the most powerful thing in the game, either within their own faction, or maybe like they play a couple of factions and they jump to the faction that they now think is the most powerful. Or sometimes people will just, know that something else that they play is more powerful but stick with what they've got. And they've very consistently come to the same conclusion. At least those at the top of the event have, and that's not like I hate this idea that like the meta is some self-enforcing thing, and that those who don't conform to it like are just shouted down by everybody else. Like no, like all these players have individually gone away and decided exactly the same thing, and then come into a tournament, and all the ones that decided the same thing have all ended up in the top 8.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, that's how these things become the meta, which is just choices that good players make, and that they've all gone and made these same decisions so incredibly quickly at the start of the season is a bit damning. Of like, how did you not foresee that this was problematic?
We'll dive in then, and we'll dive in. And the first thing I want to obviously do is, before we talk about like the games and everything like that, is just straight up congratulate Decipher on coming first with Cotter Pike and Joel Mormont Night's Watch. But Decipher, who is a friend of mine and Carlo's personally as well, he's one of the guys who helped us a lot when we went to France last year, one of our main contact points, and someone that me and Carlo had dealt with online previously. Decipher's a lovely guy, and he went away and he won the event with Night's Watch, which, congratulations to him for getting a win. And yeah, I don't really have much to say about it because I wasn't there. I did watch the last game, and the last game was actually an interesting watch. I did speak to Decipher just very briefly after his win. And it was really interesting, and I won't regale you everything he said exactly, but he did tell me this. He said, I didn't feel like I deserved the win. I just won on luck. And that's because his opponent failed two plus counterplots on the final, and two were big kind of swing moments potentially on a take the black and a shield the Gazarama men, and also his own words. He was playing double veterans, and I think one of them had Corrin in, and he legitimately forgot go down fighting the entire game. So
remember your rules.
Yeah, remember your own rules. So he was actually a little bit disappointed with his own performance, even though he won in that last game. But overall, obviously congratulations to Corrington.
I think that a lot of competitive regular tournament high level players would be, say, like on reflection, looking back, be pretty disappointed with their performance in the 7th game of the tournament, right? Like it's a slog. It's hard work. You're very unlikely to be playing your very best tactical Song of Ice and Fire at that point. He just and that, not to labor on it, is the reason why competitive players like look for the edge in list building, because if they can just fall back on like the list being powerful, then in the moments where you make a mistake because it's your 7th game and you're tired and like all these things, then if you can fall back on the list, giving you either comeback mechanisms or just very easy games early in the tournament or something like that, then that's where like it's gonna turn 6 wins into 7 wins, or what would have been 5 wins into 6 wins, and just like really, it may only sound like a 60 to 40 win percent ratio, but when you play 7 games, the chances of you getting 7 wins out of 7 is so much higher when you're the 60-40 favorite in every one of those games than if every one of those games was a 50-50 game.
Yeah, 100%. All right. I mean, obviously, congratulations to Crack T as well, Raman, who came second with Lannisters in that final. He ran Kevin. He did run Kevin and Gregor in his 2-list pair, but he did not use Gregor the entire event. He used Kevin in every single game. We will probably talk about that in a minute. Also up there, we see Taro and Nubman. Taro played against Crack T in his semi-final and lost running Night's Watch. And Nubman up there in the top 4 as well with Night's Watch, a player that I know Carlo has had some interaction with last year's French National Championship, and it was a hard game back then, I believe, as well.
Yeah, I played a very close and very tense John Night's Watch mirror with him. It was.
We also see Philippe Bertrand, who I know is in and around the chat today. Philippe came 5th with his Starks. Congratulations, Philippe. Again, another personal friend. Absolute legend. Philippe is, if you've never met Philippe, guys, Philippe is one of the loveliest guys I've personally ever met, without knowing him like super detailedly. Like, he's just lovely, and he's been great coming over to the UK and obviously supporting us last year when we were over there. Perry in 6th, a Spanish player from Italia Viga, with double Vargo Ho, and I am going to look at those lists very briefly because who doesn't want to look at some GOAT lists? Joran Flixie coming 7th as well with his Baratheons. Well done to Joran. So good result there for Joran. And Olivia Marceau, who I don't know anything about. So yeah. I'm just going to quickly dive in and look at these Vargo lists. Oh look, it's Vargo.
You don't want to know how many Golden Company subs the other list has, innit?
Is it 4?
It's only 3!
Only 3, oh well.
Because he wants to buy Braun.
Jacken. Rip. Maybe he knows what he's doing with Jacken. Copying, there are some influences I suppose you might want to copy in the... I don't know, I think I'd just probably run Bruce, to be honest.
You can copy Corrin.
You can copy Corrin. Yeah, that might be why. Purely and simply.
Who doesn't want +1 attack, +1 movement?
Yep.
I'm telling you guys, Corrin's not about the sacrifice. Corrin's about +1 attack, +1 move. Ooh, that's 5 points worth spending.
Especially if you're going to play against a lot of Night's Watch, getting Corrin for 4 points sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go through everyone's lists. What is actually super interesting is Decipher ran a slightly off, what we might call off meta. It's what I'm going to call it off meta when we don't really know what the meta is, but it's slightly off the beaten track Jaw Cotter combo. Cotter being obviously quite a. I was talking to Carlo on Friday night, and I think we both agreed that a variant of Cotter and what that looks like up in the air, but there is a Cotter list which is probably very good. There's probably a John list which is very good. We had a bit of disagreement around like whether or not Othel was a particularly good choice or if Vargo was a choice, but like we both agreed that Cotter and John were two standouts, and there may have been some other ones as well.
I believe, just for the record, by the way, I believe that Othel is garbage. Mickey disagrees.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So anyway, Jaw Mormont comes in with double vets, with Jaw in one, Corrin in the other, Cold Hands, and then Golden Company Swordsman, Bronn, Aemon, Dennis, and Bowen backing it up. The Cotter list with the Golden Company Swordsman, Cotter, the classic combo, Bronn Crossbowman, vets, Cold Hands, Aemon, Corrin, Donnell. What's interesting actually about the Jaw list here is he doesn't run Donnell or Corrin, the two standout NCUs. For Night's Watch, he runs Aemon, Dennis, and Bowen Marsh. Now, whether or not one of those could have been Donnell and could have made his list better, I don't know. But I think that kind of tells you about the strength of the NCU roster in the Night's Watch pool, is that he can run 3 there and 2 different ones there. He's got 5 unique NCUs across 6 NCUs across his 2 lists.
Mm-hmm.
Take with that what you will.
Were none of them neutral?
None of them were neutral.
None were neutral. Mental.
Yeah.
I mean,
arguably he probably could have run.
Who's leaving 4-point Varys at home?
Yeah. The Kevin list we saw here is different to the classic Kevin that we normally used to see, like what Carlo used to run at the 8. And he's kind of dipped into what we're now seeing a bit more in the 7. Sometimes we see double crossbowmen in the 7, but here we see Kevin with Golden Company Swordsmasters, Poor Fellows, Knights of Castle Rock, Lannister crossbowmen with Bronn, giving you that kind of double shot effect that Kevin gives you, with Pycelle, Varys, and Tywin. I think those 3 NCUs, Pycelle, Varys, and Tywin, become a triplet we're seeing quite a lot now in Lannister builds, with a lot of control. I would take you through the Gregor list, but it was never played. So take with that what you will.
At least Pycelle sees some play now. Yeah.
It's true. Yeah, at least Pycelle has seen some play. Should we just double check? Should we double check to make sure he's seeing enough play? Yeah. Yeah. He was at 79% pick rate in season 2, and he's now gone up to 83% pick rate. So we can confirm he's seeing more play.
Good. Good.
So the design intent was correct. He has gone up in play rate.
Buffs for the buff god. Yep.
Obviously slightly different. Kevin in the Golden Company Swordsman for the most likely charge off crowns, attack off crowns potential as well.
You know, I legit just I had completely forgotten that Kevin can charge off crowns. Like, because he's in crossbows so regularly that you just think it's an attack. I'd forgotten that the charge option was there. And I do think that it's really, really a great combo. And the more I think about it, you got Iron Resolve. You can go Iron Resolve 3+3+ if you choose to go defensive, which throws back a Lannister supremacy, right? Like that suddenly is like you do not want to attack into that. Even at range, you don't want to shoot that unit. Like you don't want to send any of your range units to shoot at it. But you can't not attack it because now it's just going to charge you and be able to choose its offensive option if you don't put an attack into it. So it's just going to come at you with 10 dice. Never mind that, you know, Kevin is just a phenomenal commander in general, right? His 3 cards are just exceptional. If anything, people have been building Kevin crossbows around the fact that, like, Kevin is just worth having. So, like, how can I get the most out of him? Because Lannisters just didn't really have a combat unit in the past, in my mind, that was worth having Kevin in. And so it was just nice that he empowered crossbows in that way, whereas now Golden Company's sword are like such an outlet for his extra charge attacks and his extra activations that you can take, that why not? But Wealth of the Rock, seeing their flaws and predictable maneuvers are just 3 phenomenal cards have. So I just don't currently see a world in which you're not really just running like double Kevin. The only thing that I used to say was like, hey, like Roos used to have, you know, great value in Flame Men Has No Secrets, right? Like, hey, there's your core encounter. The world is all good. Play 2 commanders, both have value. Hey, the biggest thing of Season 3 that wasn't even Season 3 is the absolute ludicrous ruling in my mind. The huge mistake that is that Corin can't be stopped, or can only his death is retrospectively undone if you cancel the effect of what Corin does. I think that is the single biggest problem of Season 3. I think everyone associates it with Season 3, and effectively they come at the same time, but it's not a Season 3 change. It just, like, the ruling became an official FAQ ruling at the same time as Season 3 came out, even though technically it was being ruled on by Chanel back in Season 2 as that. Just everybody was like, no, that's fucking retarded, I'm not doing that. Now it's written FAQ. You just got to kind of go, okay, I'll do it.
Yep.
But that's not Season 3. It was always like that. We just didn't play it that way.
The knock-on effect of Season 3. The Season 3 saw a larger...
They're just coincidental that they hit the competitive community outside of events that Chanel is literally at, making rulings at, or like, you know, official CMON representatives are TOing, which is basically a handful of events in North America. Everyone else has never made that ruling or believed it was supposed to be that way, so nobody else has played it that way ever before. Now, it's come to a fruition that it is a worldwide case because it's a written FAQ.
So yeah, I mean, we'll dive into the stats of the event as a whole, and we see some kind of interesting stuff here. Neutrals, I want to just point out neutrals first of all, and not the standout one, but neutrals having a 52% win rate in events. That has got to be pretty much the best news that any gamer of Sunrise and Fire can ever hope for, is that a large event where there were not a small number of players, I mean there still were relatively small, but we're not talking one player's performance here, we're talking about 3 or 4 players' performances, and they still come away with a, call it 50%, just slightly positive, 50% win rate overall. You've got to be pretty happy with that. They fixed neutrals.
Yeah. Yeah, at this event, we'll see. We'll see how long it holds. But, yeah, you know, like, in general, it seems to hold. Like they're in there in the pack. I mean, great. If you're a neutral player, great. Like, sure. I don't know. Like, I just don't think literally, Dan, still not a faction, right? Like, I actually just don't care. Like, they didn't need fixing, they needed getting rid of, but okay, sure.
Well, and this leads into the next kind of problem, doesn't it? Which is they've been fixed by giving them a very useful and very powerful 7-point unit, as well as a very useful and very powerful 4-point NCU that was already taken competitively at 5 points. Varys and Golden Company Swordsman are the 2 standout pieces that I'm talking about here. And in case you don't know, and again, I'm not going to use this as some kind of gospel, guys, because if you talk to me and Carlo about this, we know that these rankings aren't necessarily great for neutral units. Then certainly the data, if you click into the data, it's not necessarily the cleanest for neutral units.
Okay, but that's only inside neutrals.
Yeah,
and that 97% pick rate.
Yeah, that is only in neutrals. But ultimately, the 2 highest pieces rated in the game are Golden Company Swordsman and Varys, and both of them are basically double the next thing in the list, which is Cold Hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just that they're the biggest season 3
Winners.
faux pas, shall we say? Yeah, swing and a miss. Swing and a miss. What have you done there, guys? Golden Company swords are everywhere, and Varys is, I think, like the number 1 4-point NCU in the game. Like, and the thing about Littlefinger was that like he was the 2nd or 3rd best NCU in nearly every faction, so was nearly always picked. Because you're going to take 2 or 3 NCUs. You've got one of your own, which is probably better, and then you've got like the by the time you're like, do I want my 3rd best Lannister NCU or do I want Littlefinger? And you're like, I'll take Littlefinger. Like, he adds like real value, he has play into Martell, he does X, Y, Z, blah 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 blah. Varys is just like, he's the best number 1 first choice inside of practically every faction. Nearly at this point.
I just think, I mean, going back to Night's Watch NCUs in particular, but like, even like the comparison between Varys and Aemon, I think Aemon's a very good NCU. I think that Varys might be better than Aemon in Night's Watch list, and I think that particularly is very scary when an NCU like Aemon, who basically everyone in the game would just be like, yes, please, love God, give me Aemon. That would be amazing. Basically, every faction in the game wants that, and Night's Watch are sat there going like, yeah, but this is better.
Yeah, I pick Varys over Aemon in my free vote in my Night's Watch games that I've been playing. Every game that I played this season, Varys, not Aemon.
Mental. Yeah, so Golden Company Swordsman, we're going to miss. We don't need to go into why that is. We've seen the debates on it. We've seen kind of the topics on it. I think ultimately, I do think it's quite important for us to note that this is also a lot of, what we might call average players playing the game as well. I don't necessarily think that Golden Company swordsmen are this kind of big scourge that are like a problem to deal with. But they are, for the overall game, a very clear, strong pick, to the point where, really, if you're looking for a 7-point infantry unit in your list, why isn't this what you're picking? You've got to have a reason why it isn't this. Similarly with Varys, I think you've got to be really pushing your boat out a lot to say why you're not taking Varys.
I mean, I disagree. In that, like, it's only one result so far, but I was disappointed and shocked by the French top 8. I mean, I don't know if you've looked, but I mean, people are looking at the French top 8 and they're saying Night's Watch, and I'm looking at the French top 8 and I say no. Golden Company swords. 6 of the 8 players are running Golden Company swords. The only 2 who aren't are playing Night's Watch, who have like Golden Company sword equivalent units who can take vows. 6 of the 8. No matter what faction you're playing Golden Company swords. That is the 6 of top 8 that LGT was like, oh, that's Mance, right? Like, Night's Watch aren't the new Mance. Golden Company Sword are the new Mance, which is you're either playing them, and you're playing them like playing commanders and lists which empower them, or you're playing lists which you think can counter them. They are competitive game defining based on France, right? Like, and I am surprised. Like, I didn't think, for me, they weren't that game defining, but the common theme in the top 8 isn't Night's Watch. The common theme is Golden Company swords.
Yeah.
And it's bad. It's 6 out of 8. 6 out of 8 are using them, and they all are basically either like, my commander is in Golden Company swords, or I've picked them and I've got this 1-point attachment which I also want to put into them to like lean into it. So you see, so like in Crackty's second list, you see like Gregor Clegane, for example. You see the Hound. You see the Hound in them instead of Gregor because that's a really nice combo. Plus, you can still use assault orders on it. You're getting the vulnerable. You're getting fueled by slaughter, etc., etc. Right? Like when we see it used in Night's Watch, it's because we're talking about Cotter and we're talking about fueled by slaughter and double attacks and stuff like that. So I disagree with this idea that like from France's top 8, it currently looks like Golden Company swords are the biggest issue in the game. Now that Night's Watch feel like they're the only faction who don't even have to use them is a bit of a like, you know, like warning. Do you know what I mean? Like everybody else is like, let's build around this unit. It's absolutely phenomenal. And Night's Watch are a bit like, that kind of tells you how powerful their 7-point choices are. But half of Night's Watch are using them, and that's despite the fact that they lose the vowels on them.
Yep.
So you have to understand that even Night's Watch think that it's the most powerful unit in the game, and they're willing to lose half the value of their deck at that unit. So they are more powerful than all the Night's Watch 7s in those people's minds, right? Like they're willing to not use Swarm Brothers in favor of using Golden Company swords, using up their neutral allowance, which isn't a big deal inside of inside of Night's Watch because you just don't have that synergy there. But they're choosing to do that over losing the ability to attach shields, losing the ability to attach Sword in the Darkness, you know, all those things. So yeah, I think it is concerning. Night's Watch are undeniably strong at 68%, but I think that's very heavily based on Corrin being just like a mistake. Let's just call it a mistake. The ruling is a mistake, and bringing him down to 5 points back in Season 2 was a mistake as well. And the other big mistake that they've made beyond Varys and Golden Company swords is that Cold Hands should not have gained half as many of the buffs that he got when he moved to 5 points. He didn't need +2 attacks and +1 save. He would have been a phenomenal 5-point pick with either or, and people still probably wouldn't have felt bad about the fact that he'd gone to 5. I mean, I think you can make an argument that he could have gone to 5 points and not changed at all, and he would have been fine. You can throw them a crumb and give him +1 or +2 dice, you know, but like, don't give him +2 dice and +1 save, making him an absolute tank. He's a 5-point unit that just like kills most other 5-point units in the game in one-on-one fights, and he then respawns, and he supports other people. Like it's so that Night's Watcher out there doing 68% is off of the back of the strength of Corrin and Cold Hands, in my mind. What's interesting is that they actually have a mix of commanders hitting that. You got Othel, you got J.O., you got John, you got Cotter, and they're all in at around 70% win rate, 60. You know, like I think Othel's like not many picks at 80%, but you know, the rest are all there around 70. So it's not just Mance running at like 78% win rate or 84% win rate or whatever he was, because their commander isn't their problem piece anymore. It's their NCU stable with Cold Hands, and whether or not you choose to lose power from your deck in favor of having Golden Company swords is just a choice that Night's Watch players get to make. But at the moment, it seems 100% of players who weren't playing Night's Watch only made the top 8 in France if they played Golden Company swords. So it's not a choice that anybody else gets to make. And that's what disappointed me about France, because I didn't think it was going to be that clear cut. I knew that they were performing well. I knew that everybody was leaning into them, shall we say, memeing about them even, talking about whether or not they're good with this commander or that commander, or they're a problem with this or they're a problem with that. And again, everybody's like seeing stuff like, oh, you know, like Stannis with tactical approach is overpowered on Golden Company swords. Golden Company swords are overpowered. Stannis isn't a problem. He never was a problem. He wasn't a problem when he had. He wasn't a problem when he had Queensmen. He wasn't a problem when he did. He is not a problem with Lightbringers. He's not a problem with that. Have you considered that the thing that is the issue is the Golden Company swords? It's not Stannis. Leave the fucking guy alone. Do you know what I mean? Like, Gregor wasn't overpowered. Leave the guy alone. I mean, Kev, you can make an argument that Kevin is overpowered, right? Like, I'm not gonna say that. Because Kevin has proved that he's just as powerful without Golden Company swords, or at least like he was one of the top commanders in the game before Golden Company came along, and before he had phenomenal synergy with Golden Company. Now he has great synergy with Golden Company. He's again looking great, and they both empower each other. Never mind some Lannister, mostly side grade, but like just like little improvements in that deck. Yeah. So, yeah, I just Golden Company are very meta defining. I think that Tywin's ability to shut off all abilities is useful, but it feels like a Golden Company on Golden Company game, and
I think
it's like
I think it's more than that though, right? Because I don't think it's just Golden Company swordsmen are good. Because the thing is that infantry, like, we saw it with Queen's Men, we've seen it with King's Men in the past. So I'm not saying that King's Men are particularly good, actually, but like the point is that these units are incredibly easy at high level play to keep from being relevant. Like, it's easy to sideline an infantry unit in the game, unless you have a lot of movement tricks, right? Like, that is just generally true, and that's how good competitive players play. They sideline units and they try and push the enemy units out of the game if they can, in favor of putting more of their own units into the game. Now, with lower activation counts, which we are generally seeing, there's less blocking, there's less of this kind of shuffling of pieces, I think, because there are simply less pieces on the board, and that means that people are less inclined to do it. And if you haven't seen the final of Decipher versus Crack T, like, I couldn't tell by the end of the game, but it genuinely looked like there was one piece of terrain on the board, and the two armies were just like smashing into each other, and just really there was just no finesse in terms of the movement of the game. It was just, we're gonna kick the shit out of each other. Now, that's not to say that that isn't the direction that the game is going, or that's bad or anything like that, but it's not what we are used to seeing necessarily, of those kind of very tentative movement-based approaches to games. I know that me and Carlo played a very movement-based game on Friday night. In fact, so much so that I threw it because I made a bad movement. And whether or not that's just indicative of the meta now, I don't know. But part of me says Golden Company swordsmen alone aren't the thing. What it actually is can you synergize well with them in meaningful ways?
Yeah, I mean, so people who can empower them, be that extra activations, extra movements, getting them into the places that you want them to be, giving them extra charges, all that kind of stuff. That's what people seem to be building around. I think that the ubiquity of Varys is also a problem in that regard, in that, like, don't forget that he can 3-inch shift, or whatever his other effect is, so he can help bring them into line of sight, which is always been the major problem that that 7-point, 8-point high value, particularly aggressive infantry have had. That, like, why pay 7 points for this infantry when for 8 I can have some cavalry that basically, never mind the charge distance, they can just turn around and charge something directly behind them, and infantry aren't ever doing that. Yeah, I mean, Night's Watch are great in that regard, because of Watcher on the Wall, such an impactful card to suddenly bring something into charge arc that you didn't think was. But Kevin's predictable maneuvers is going to help you there. It does really seem like empowering Golden Company swords seems to be the thing to do, right? Like, whether or not it really is, whether or not there are other options out there, some more tournaments will tell. I I hadn't bought into it entirely myself. Like I haven't played them yet. I've played against them, but I haven't played with them. And so, and not for like lack of availability. I just, caveat, I haven't been playing Night's Watch, who don't feel as encumbered by like, I must take this unit, right? Because you're going to lose all your vows. But yeah, I do think that if you're playing them, you're building around them. And as I say, I just think that they've become such a significant focal point of what people are thinking about that it's detrimental. Like it's so detrimental. People are talking about, should we like completely play for like the ability to shut off orders, right? Like are orders shut off the most powerful thing now because I need to be able to stop you from being able to get +3 attacks and precision? Do I need to stop you from being able to do +1 save and +2 morale? Like, do I need to be able to turn that order off? Do I need to always need to bring 6-point Tywin because turning off all their abilities for the round is the only way I'm ever going to kill them? These kind of questions seems to be what the discussion is around. Either that or like, but does this commander empower Golden Company swords? Like, what commander should I use with Golden Company swords? Joska, keeps talking about Erahota, who, I do think that there's also a Hotel Martel meme out there where he gets 3 auto hits on the charge plus 3 extra attacks, so he's 10 attacks plus 3 hits. That's right, isn't it? He does auto hit.
3 autos,
yeah.
10 dice, vulnerable, sundering, and you get to heal every time you pass a test, which you're doing is with Iron Resolve.
Yeah, he does the vulnerable, so you got that trifecta of sundering and vulnerable plus an absolute tonnage of dice. Don't forget throw precision on top because that solves all, that remedies all wounds. So
all problems.
Giants, not a bother. Dragons with mother dragons, not a bother. Like Fire Made Flesh, worthless. Because precision just covers up all cracks, right? So the unit looks like it can do it. The unit can do everything except take a maneuver to get itself into charge arc. That's the only thing that it can't do. So if you can get it into charge arc, then yeah, like it's gonna make 7 points of value.
Yep.
What's interesting though, the unit's a bit overtuned, right? Like it is. Like let's not be. It's probably a little bit too powerful. I don't know what I'd take away. But let's just put it out there though that I don't think that it's wildly off where every 7-point infantry unit should be.
I mean, I think there's 2 problems in that. First of all, it's got this duality, and the fact it has this duality might actually be more of the problem than the power level of each individual position.
Yeah, okay. So maybe like it should be able to have either that offensive output or that defensive output.
Yes.
Right, like,
Yeah.
Like most people talk about their offensive output.
Yep.
I think their defensive output is a bit underrated. The 3+3+ with Iron Resolve is just like so hard to kill. But Crohn's doesn't negotiate with terrorists. Yeah, I mean, we're not quite that far, but yes, okay. I think that their offensive output alone, 10 dice hitting on 3s with sundering, for a 7-point infantry unit, actually not a problem. If everybody has things that do that. That is where a 7-point infantry unit should be. Now, the big thing is that, like, not everybody has that.
Do you not feel?
But I'm still considering like Lance Cavalry over them now and again and stuff like that, right? Like,
do you not feel though, like my problem with this is that it flies in the face of the whole purpose of what 2021 was about? Like the whole point of 2021 was to make the game less killy. They actively said that they didn't want the game to be as killy. and then they've now upped everything to 10 dice, remembering that it was Berserkers back in 1.6 who were running 10 dice, and do we remember that Berserkers were 6 points, and they ran a Bran in them, Bran and Hodor for the D3 autos, which took them to a 7-point infantry unit, and like they had the defensive stats which was similar. They had 1+1 move, which is not quite the same thing, but you can manipulate that in certain factions. So I really feel like if you actually go back and compare modern GCS, unattached modern GCS, with what we were basically complaining about back in 1.6, they're the same thing. Like, they're actually the same thing. And that's my concern personally, is that it felt like we were moving away from 1.6, and now the only difference is we've moved away from 1.6 because you can do that, but you can't buy free dogs.
Yeah, I think I think it is an interesting point that like basically they decided that nobody's allowed to have more than 7 dice. Not like literally no. Well, okay, not nobody. Some very
Unsullied.
Where do Unsullied have it? Do Cave Savages?
They have 8 dice at 1 rank, and Berserkers technically have 9, I think, at 1 rank.
Yeah, exactly. There are some, but effectively, 95% of all units have 7 attacks on their first rank. And all you're allowed to have is keywords either side of that. You're allowed to have crit blow, you're allowed to have precision, you're allowed to have sundering, you're allowed to have whatever, right? Like, that's how an attack becomes more than a different attack. But everybody's got 7 dice. Unless you're Lance Cav, and you're allowed to have 10, right? Like, on the charge with 2 ranks. And that seemed fine. But then these guys just break the mold because they just have 10. They just get to have 10 effectively, and they get to have sundering and precision with that. And yeah, I mean, I think that actually Joss's last comment is they could they'd be so much fairer. I don't think we'd be having any of these conversations, even though I think that their power level would be quite similar. Not nowhere near the same, but they'd be playable if the order was just for the turn or for the attack. Yeah. 10 dice plus 3 dice and precision on that attack, not for the whole round. Or +1 save, +2 morale against that attack. It doesn't last the whole round. You get to defend against one big attack. You don't get to just go, okay, I'm in defensive stance this turn, therefore, rip if you wanted to do any morale damage to me because I'm a 3+ with Iron Resolve, so lol. And oh, by the way, yeah, you're not really getting anything through actual damage either because I have a 3+ save. So well, who does kill me? Not much. Auto wounds, basically.
Precision.
Yeah.
So is everyone's problem.
Yeah. Precision. Exactly. Yeah. Just bring your own Golden Company swords and roll 10 dice with precision. Obviously. Yeah, like resilience. Resilience is already a phenomenal ability by itself, and it only works on 1 attack, right? You say it costs 2 points. I mean, in Free Folk it costs 2 points with Iron Resolve, which is a 1-point ability by itself. So.
And in Greyjoys it costs 2 points with Go Down Fighting, which is.
So there you go. Not actually a 2-point ability.
It costs 1 point. Or 3. Yeah, no.
I think, yeah, we could talk forever about it, but I think that in general, that is actually where the effective strength at a 7-point unit actually could and should be. We're seeing people running 7-point units. We're seeing 7 activation lists being very powerful. I actually haven't really looked into loads of the numbers around what the efficiency of 4-3s are at the moment, and whether or not they're actually generally performing better than the 5-3s. You've got the whole pass mechanic making that more complex. I think if Golden Company weren't so ubiquitous to the game, and you took away some of Night's Watch tools, then we might be really, really happy with where the game's at. I think that lots of people would have really good options. They would have a range of commanders that they would like to try. There are a range of different builds that they can run. But I think that as things are right now, those things are just the only thing that are on people's minds.
I'm just looking
Doesn't
at
mean it's the only thing that can win, but it's the only thing that's on people's minds.
That's insane. I'm looking at the kind of like where Martells are sitting. So not where Martells, sorry, where each faction sits on its activations and its play rates and its win rates, and it is really, really interesting. At least it's interesting because it's different, right? That's hilarious. I know because you haven't got the Bolton data's a bit fucky at the moment, isn't it? But yeah.
Yeah, it's only 1 month worth of data, so I mean it discounts like if a list type archetype, if a certain activation number hasn't been played a certain number of times, then it doesn't do the win rate on it. But
it also says that they're at minus 44.44% win rate, which
Bolton stats, baby.
we win rate we lose so hard we have a negative win rate. But I mean, what's actually is very interesting is that conventional wisdom actually still holds true for a lot of factions, but not all. We see Targs having, we're talking still relatively small samples at these numbers, but Targs gain a 7% win rate in their 5-3 over their 5-2. That's
what
massive.
People do playing 5-2 is what I'm asking.
Well, yeah.
Come on, boys. Do we have to have this fucking conversation again?
But even over 4-3, it's a whopping nearly 10%.
Yeah.
So like Targs at 8. You see Boltons, and Boltons, it's hard to analyse really what's going on. Boltons are pretty bad. Free Folk, we see 9s typically being picked up more, but 10 still has a nearly 70% win rate. With 8, 5-3 coming in at 61, and the 9, 6-3 coming in at 53. So I mean, running the 10 activation build is probably just the best thing still. We see
Free Folk flying under the radar at France. Nobody doing well with them.
Free Folk, yeah. I mean, if anyone didn't know, Free Folk, Bolton can't be played. Free Folk down at 37% win rate, which again can be down to the individuals running Free Folk, but ultimately is a pretty poor showing if you consider last year's relative swap.
Dominance.
Real dominance to being basically shit in the stats. So yeah, we see.
But, I mean, overall, they're doing fine.
Oh, okay, I think they're the third worst faction at the moment, minus 10, I think, minus 12. I can look it up again. It's marginal because everyone's sat in that same kind of ballpark from Starks at 1-2 points down to Free Folk at
So
minus.
they're not. I mean, there's Night's Watch Lannisters. There's Night's Watch Lannisters, and then there's third place.
There's a bunch of shit, and then you've got Bolton and Targ at the bottom. But yeah, Martells.
Yeah, I mean, activation count will come out a bit later when we see
more games,
more results coming in.
But even so, like Greyjoys, it's a 6-3. It's a 9 activation 6-3 that's winning out. It's a admittedly small number of games, but it's got over a 70% win rate at the moment, compared to the 7 and 8 activation builds, which are just wallowing at 8 activation builds wallowing at 38% win rate. That's their third best. Neutrals at 7, the 5-2 and the 4-3 are almost identical. Really matter. Just run Golden Company Swordsman and you'll win. Or not win.
250% exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Baratheon's actually, like, yet again, Baratheons are sad on all fronts, except their 4-2 build, which we always spoke about, Carlo. These 4-2 builds in Baratheon were, like, never good. And admittedly here, they've only got 20 games with an exact 50%. But everything else Baratheon, 46%, 41%, and don't play a 5-3 in Baratheon. It apparently only has 14 games, but a 21% win rate. Very sad.
Remind me, what actually happened to Baratheons in season 3?
They got a bunch of precision on a random selection of things. Renly's King's Guard, Rainbow Guard were buffed. Now you definitely probably don't take them, rather than 100% definitely don't take them.
Yeah. Did Rose Knights get buffed? Did Rose Knights get
Justice? Oh yeah,
yes, they sent Baratheon Justice down from 3 tokens to 2, right?
Well, no, they sent it to 1 token.
1 token, which becomes the second, as opposed to 2 tokens, which becomes the third.
Which 2 tokens becoming a weekend. You can't access the weekend at all now.
Yeah.
And Rose Knight's going down to 5 morale is actually, I think, one of the more impactful changes that a lot of people haven't been talking about that much. 5 morale Rose Knights are actually an interesting question about how good they are. I think they're probably quite good. As 7-point infantry unit goes that aren't Golden Company swordsmen, of course. Yeah, I mean, who else we got? Starks. Their 8-3 beats out their 5-2 marginally. All very marginal. And Starks. Lannisters, the 4-3, the 5-3, and I'm going to ignore that 5-1 because that's played 8 games and very well. But 4-3 and 5-3 are basically the same win rate in Lannister. And Night's Watch, the 4-3 is now edging out the 5-3. Which again, it'll be probably the impact that Cotter Pike is having. As Cotter Pike is currently the strongest rated Night's Watch commander, and commander in the game, in fact, over John. John will typically be running 8s.
Just over Kevin, right? Like just.
Yeah.
Just higher than Kevin.
They're all kind of much of a muchness. You've got the top 3 are Kevin, Cotter 0.3 above Kevin, and John 3 points behind Kevin. So it's a marginal few games. But
yeah, nothing there. Like, we'll see whether or not any other faction can bring anything up to the same level. Otherwise, yeah, you know.
My question.
Although, I mean, like, it's still early days, but like yes. Plus 64 is a tiny number.
Yes, it is.
Right, like it's nowhere near the dominance that we've seen in the past.
120.
Probably because everybody outside of Free Folk can field the actual dominant thing, which is Golden Company swords, right? Like, so the dominant thing is available to everybody. Whereas, you know, when we talked about the Mance problem, like, obviously that's not available to everybody. Each individual faction's got their own spins on these things. We've got Tywin, we've got Kevin, we've got Cotter himself with Corin and Cold Hands. We've got was it Brynden? You know, and you're talking about maybe like Caitlyn is your empowering part there. Caitlyn's always just incredibly important for Starks in general. Plus, maybe there are some Stark cards which are going to help that 10 dice charge. Martells, you know, we could talk about Hotar. Whether or not they're really leaning into Golden Company swords is a different question. Powerful deck, though, in general. Barras, I think they got done dirty, but, you know, people are talking about that attack approach. You know, everybody's got something they can do. Targs, I was looking at, you know, like either a Grey Worm or a Marsden kind of meme around that, but like I still think it's about, you know, the thing is like for some people it's a joke, for others it's just a good list, and that's going to be the difference maker, really.
I think obviously, I mean, was I want to say Mance and obviously the peak Varamir, of course, as well, which happened off the kind of end of that season 1 going into season 2. I want to say that Mance was set around 100. Varamir 100 maybe as well, maybe 120 may have been a peak, I vaguely remember, in terms of ELO. But definitely we were talking close to 100 if, you know. So 64's, I'm going to say about halfway to where I think the peaks were. So 64's, as Carlo says, is not particularly far. It is still early days, but it's not particularly far. Do you think, though, that from a tournament standpoint, if we take 16 of the best players in the world, do you think from a tournament standpoint that you would kind of expect it to be a 2-horse race, though, between Night's Watch and, I'll say Lannister, but ultimately it's going to be Kevin, isn't it?
I didn't before France. I don't want to, because everybody can build around Golden Company swords.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think the Martells have play. I think that there are more than just those two factions that I'd be willing to play. That's all I know at the moment. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't like write myself off if I wasn't playing those two factions. But yet to be proven. You know, like still pretty early days. See how US Nationals goes. See how LGT goes. See how Poland goes. We're gonna have a lot of information in what is the next 6 weeks, I think. I mean, it's effectively Nationals GT season. Like, here we are, late summer, comes around again. We're going to see all the GTs in action together. I really wish Simon would... Well, I mean, I guess you can't really think about what their timescales are or whatever, but, like, I wish they would build their ideas around balance based off of, like, what they see in this period. And then as quickly as possible, like, have a new patch out in time for like the end of this year, right? I think that would be the ideal situation. You see what happens throughout August, September, October, and then you take November, December, and in January you say, here's your patch for the year, with maybe like a 6 month kind of like just refresher halfway through if something's really come out early doors. But this is where the big tournaments are, right? Like they're all within a few months of each other, and it is what you should be taking note of. We'll see if they all come up with the same result. Last year they all came up with identical results of nothing but Manx wins. I don't want to believe that only Night's Watch are going to win these events.
I don't believe they will.
I'm not pretending that they're not the easiest thing to play or the most overtly powerful thing at the moment.
I don't believe that Night's Watch will win all the events. However, I also don't believe that it will differ much from basically what you've got on the screen here. I personally probably expect Cotter or Kevin to be winning. Not Cotter, Night's Watch, or Lannister to be winning the events, probably, on the most part. I don't personally believe.
I'm not saying it's not.
No. Which is still better
than
one.
I was looking down the list. There isn't. I mean, at the moment, there isn't anything. It's Night's Watch and Lannister because the two factions are out ahead more than the individual commanders are within the factions. I mean, of course, that is the other thing that they did. You know, they spruced up some commanders here and there, added precision to everything. It was something, you know, like they've tried to they looked at some of the right things on the whole part. You know, they looked at these underplayed, underperforming things, and gave them a little sprinkle of some stuff. So we'll see. But I thought that the boat was in a good place. I don't know why they rocked it in quite the way that they did.
Well, especially with the Corran ruling.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's, as I say, a game that will like intrinsically be part of what season 3 is. He already was a big part of what season 2 was, but it's going to be hard to separate that from season 3 and balance-based choices around that. But you know.
All right then. Cool. Obviously, it's US Nationals next weekend, and we will see how our US Nationals kind of pans out. US Nationals, of course, the only event last year which I think bucked the trend. I think, because well, we can talk about why that is, but let's not. But yeah, the only event that kind of bucked the trend, so I guess we'll see how US Nationals fares this year. We've then got LGT the week...
Because it's a small 32-player event, yeah?
Basically, because it's a small 32-player event, yeah, that's right. Then we've got US Nationals...
I say that was close to a possible 32-player LGT.
I know, right? 32 player LGT coming up at the end of September. So in 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks time, we'll find out what happens there. That's looking a little bit healthier, with ticket sales kind of spiking up at the last minute.
Yeah, if you don't know, tickets are now suddenly very limited.
Yes.
It wasn't publicly, like, some people found out that tickets had just quietly gone into not available and sold out. 10 tickets were made available today. Yes, last night, whenever, today or something. So if you intend to come to the LGT and you haven't found out through Discord or other means, and you think that you're going to come and you don't currently possess a ticket, then go and buy a ticket. If you go and it says sold out, then click the button that says notify me. Because that will possibly mean that you will be either contacted if somebody doesn't want to attend, or if enough people say notify me, then maybe some more tickets can be made available, taken away from a different event. But yes, it has become space limited, which I believe also France possibly was. I mean, France was a clean 64 player event. I don't know whether or not I think that was a little bit around, like, that's the sort of size of event that they thought they were going to get, and if I was running the event, I would very much like to get it to a nice even 64 player bracket. I'm hopeful that the LGT will be similar, though I don't believe that they're currently capped at 64. I think they're currently capped at something a bit lower than 64. So there'd have to be a surge in people saying I want a ticket for LGT to be 64.
US Nationals is 35 players, as it currently stands.
35 on stats at the moment. US Nationals could be the biggest tournament this year. What? Have you ever heard of Poland?
Nowhere near. Unfortunately.
Lol. I mean, like, Evan, mate, you are actually having a fucking laugh if you think. I mean, LGT and Spain and France are all only smaller because everybody's going to Poland. Like, and yet LGT, France, and Spain are all still probably going to be bigger than the US Nationals. That's what I think it's going to be.
I mean, there are 50 people signed up on stat. Not quite. There are 47 people signed up on stats for, which is already more.
Poland is sold out at about 150.
Excuse me. Get your numbers right.
Is it 180?
I think it's 160.
Okay. So it's 150.
But yeah. I don't know. They've had
Okay. All right, Evan. Cool. No, honestly, good luck. If it's 90 people, I'd be super impressed. I would be genuinely super impressed. That will be 3 times bigger than last year. Yeah. I'll believe it when I see it.
So where's Polish champion? Scroll all the way down to the bottom. Then,
My bet is that US Nationals is 40-something.
Scroll all the way to the bottom of Polish Nationals, and then realise that the waiting list is there, so you have to scroll up a little bit. Then you scroll up a bit and realise that the waiting list is longer than most people's attendee list of anything ever. And you see there's 160 players signed up. If I only knew how to count. So hang on, hidden is 3 times, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what unique list Evan's talking about, but I think you're talking about people who have qualified, not people who, like, are actually planning to be there and play. Yeah.
Anyway.
I'll be impressed if US Nationals breaks 50. You know. It would be a worthwhile growth and a worthwhile event. I mean, anything 32 and above is a worthwhile event, but, you know, I still think that.
So
90. I still think that 90 is a pipe dream.
I'm going to just throw this out there in case you don't know. Poland has 160 players going to it as it currently stands signed up, right? Do you know how many people are on the waiting list? 57. There are more people on the waiting list for Polish nationals than there are than the attendees in France this year. Absolute insane. Like, that's absolutely nuts.
Interesting phenomenon. Like, it really does feel like everybody's decided. So I don't know if it was just like the timing of their announcement, the strength of their local scene, or whether or not like the official capacity that I forget who they're called now, the distributors of the Polish game have through Simon. Like, I do feel like that they are War Factory. There we go. That War Factory have some higher level of official status than everybody else in the world can like say. Like, they are officially attached to the game. I think has created a certain amount of desire to be there. And then that's just compounded with the FOMO of everybody wanting to be there. And I do think I think it's been a very hard year for French nationals and LGT. LGT particularly being the one that's caught between the other two events. It's 3 months. It's 3 weeks after France, 3 weeks before Poland. You're incredibly unlikely to get anybody going to LGT and one of the other two, not an international traveller who's going to travel to both, and maybe some people are willing to travel to France and then travel to Poland 6 weeks apart, but like the 3 weeks is a hard push. So I
think it's also when these things are announced. Is it generally speaking, like, this is just a generalization, massive one? Most people only make one international trip for a game a year, and that is a massive generalization. But if you are keen in this game, you're only typically going to do one a year, simply because there's actually nothing to do with finance or when they are, but it's the other costs involved, right? The social costs, your family, whatever else is going on. It's not something that we ever talk about too much, but like Carlo does travel quite a lot for Frisbee. He's done it previously for work and things like that. I'm not saying that Carlo travels more than a lot of other people, though. He doesn't travel more than other people. But Carlo's also a very experienced traveller. And Carlo still hasn't yet gone to more than one international song event in a year, unless you count last year when he was in the US anyway.
Unless...
I guess you count the only time where it could have happened. But this year, you're not even doing one, right?
No.
And yet you are probably, if anyone is going to travel internationally from the UK, I would put you literally on top of the list.
Because there's quite a few people from the UK going to Poland, so, you know, I mean, like...
Yeah, I know, but, like, I would still put you at the top of the list.
A lot of guys going up from Scotland, it seems. Marky's going to be there. Jacob is on the list. So there are some UK representatives. There's people from everywhere. Like, it's really... You're right, it has captured everybody. Yeah, Scotland was my international travel. If that's true, then I go international every single year, because I've been to every always winter that there has been. Even when like all was like 18 people, I like travelled by myself to go there.
By that definition, LGT's international for us because Scotland's closer.
Yeah, you know. Well, I mean, like London is already a big commitment. Like London's a big enough commitment from where we are. So yeah, I would travel if these places were easier to get to. None of them seem to be. It is the hard thing of like. Obviously, London is incredibly easy to get to, but it's in a very expensive place. Whereas, like, French nationals, for example, like, not a major airport that I could fly to easily at all. The Polish one, I mean, I think a lot of other people can kind of fly there reasonably easily, but not from any airports near me. So that really... I looked at all these events, but, like, it was just difficult. I just didn't really fancy committing to it. So just decided to, go to all the UK events that I possibly could this year, try and support the growth of like the multiple GTs that were trying to be run. Lots of GTs run in the UK this year, but I do think that it's very interesting to me that there is like this, whether or not it's real or not is questionable, but there's this 52-person waiting list of people who would be willing to go to Poland but can't, but they don't want to go to France or LGT instead. What's happened there? Poland, it seems to have been too successful. It's too successful for the community. What it's left is all the other events as unsuccessful by their own historical standards, and it can't cater to the amount of people who would like to be at this one event, which is unfortunate. If 250 people wanted to come to LGT, 250 people could come to the LGT. Like, the LGT can grow to any size capacity, but that Poland have come out and like instantly said, guys, this is going to be 150 people. Or I keep thinking like their original announce was 150. Maybe they like found space for like another 10 when they sold out or something.
I think their original size was actually lower. I think they just said like a 124 or something like that. And then it just kept getting, like, I know they like immediately opened it up, because I think they said that by popular demand they were raising it to 150 plus, because they announced it and basically everyone in Poland went yes.
So I mean, like, the strength of the local community, you don't forget that they ran a 80 person nationals last year, which was 100% Poles, no internationals at all, whereas LGT, which ran at 114, I think after the dropout selling 124 tickets, they were a good 30-something, 40-something internationals. So the UK contingent inside of that was actually smaller than attended Polish nationals, who were Poles. The French nationals also reasonably similar, like 90 people, but you were talking about like 20 internationals or something like that. Again, like the French commitment to French nationals was lower than the Polish commitment to Polish nationals. So that really helps. Kind of like give everybody confirmation that like it's going to be big, because if you're sure that 100 people are going to be there because like 100 Polish people sign up instantaneously, then that social confirmation that's going to be big is really powerful to get other people on board. But I think it's a mistake. We'll see. I think it's a mistake that they've gone past 124, because I mean they still claim that they're going to run a 7-round event. So now we've got more than now we've probably got more than one undefeated player. I think that's going to be a huge problem. Unless they're running an 8th round, they're not getting to a single undefeated player, which I don't think is worth any amount of players being there. I'd rather have a 124 event with a single undefeated than a 160 event with 2 people undefeated at the end of the tournament.
I suppose.
And if they capped at 124, like Europe, like this, if all these entrants are real, then this has proved that there is space for France, LGT, and Poland to all be running 124 player events, like simultaneously within the same year. And that would be so much better. Each event can be great, right? Like each event can be 124. Each event can fit it in 7 rounds.
I guess the problem there though is the makeup of each event, and I think we've got to really consider whether or not, it's hard. Is traveling to somewhere like Germany or France or the LGT the same kind of problem for each event? I'm not saying that's not what you've said isn't true. I just think it's a little bit more complicated than saying there's space in the calendar 100% for each event. I already believe that kind of anyway. But I don't necessarily think that, removing Poland, for example, and saying Poland's full at 124, you're not just going to magically then convert 30 people who are going to go to that on the waiting list to instead go to France or the LGT. Do you know what I mean?
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, there already are these 50 people on the waiting list who have chosen. Like, they're not like people who also were at France a couple of weeks at the weekend, right? Like, they're not repeated names. Yeah, I think that it's been oddly detrimental on the European scene. That it has been the standout success of the year. That I think that it was far more positive when London and France were very similarly sized. It's easy to say that as the ones who, were slightly bigger. You know what I mean? Like, when we sold the 124, maybe they were annoyed that they wanted to be 124 but didn't fully sell out. And, as far as they were concerned, like, London ruined the capability of France being as big as it possibly could, right? But it seems like the announcement of Poland, then nothing for such a long time, no announcement from LGT, no announcement from France until like a significant period later, off of the back of the strength of Poland's last year's local scene, their very, very early announcement, being able to commit that, like, this was Polish nationals, we are going to run the biggest event of ever run next year. We are going to be like 150, I think they said from very early on. They were really committed to the idea that they were going to be the biggest event. I think just got everybody like tunnel vision on this one tournament, whereas the advantage in the past has been that they were all great. I think that the non-materialization, I mean, can we just talk about the fact that Worlds like never happened, right? So now, if Worlds were an organized thing, right? Like, if this were a real, if we were just talking about trading card games or something like that, right? Like, where like obviously there would be a very publicly mapped out road to the World Championships, and if those qualifying spots were like equally allocated to each nationals, then there would suddenly be a reason to go to the smaller nationals. You would, if you can't get into Poland, you would be like, okay, well, I'm going to go to France or I'm going to go to London. And if anything, you'd be like, there's less people at that, so that's going to be my better chance to qualify for Worlds. I don't know. That's what it feels like to me. I mean, yeah. Again, interesting. Like talking about like how the Polish are on another level and stuff like that. I personally really think that it's just the fact that they have the ability to say we're official. I think that if there were the equivalent of if there was the equivalent of War Factory in England or the equivalent of War Factory in France, those events would be just as big, and the local communities would be just as involved. And all those things. There's nothing. I mean, the Polish community do play a lot. Like, and there is a big Polish community. Let's not downplay that part. But I think if anybody else had that official recognition, which is what makes like US performance so bad, because they have that official connection, but they still aren't able to convert it. I think that we would be talking about all these events being 124 this year.
I think there is one big difference as well, though, and you talk about the strength of the community there, and it is War Factory. It's War Factory's involvement with the game, which is ultimately a very, very important thing that we don't give enough credit for, which is there is literally stock on shelves. You cannot get new people into this game in the UK by chance. You have to show people the game exists. You have to put demos on for them. You have to play it in store and show them. You cannot just have someone walk into a model store in the UK and pick this game off the shelf.
Yeah, of course. I'm sort of like, when I say like this, like official recognition, I guess that's not really what I mean. Like you say, I feel like it's like some kind of officially business recognized champion of the game, it has to be like actually like really involved in the game, not just some kind of corporate thing that runs tournaments or anything like that, right? Like, I think that War factory is what has made Poland what it is right now.
100%.
And that's very admirable, you know, like that they seem so involved in the game and positive effect on their community.
It makes more sense though that they're able to transfer their community into attendees as well, because they are the people who provide the game, as in like distributing it basically, and then they say, oh, by the way, you're a we distribute to you and your shop. You should know about this event that we're running that you should get your players to come along to. Like, it's also the very official channels by which they can work, and you are right in that sense. It's the business official channels that they can leverage, which again makes the whole discussion around US. Let's not go there, but it does raise the question there, because it's just, again, like this whole business level, nothing to do with players, I would add. This whole business level that's just not being taken advantage of. And in case people don't know, that's even been more so true. And I know that Adam and I know that the guys are trying to change that, but it's never been more true than this year, seeing that people who had won regional events or come second in regional events still didn't have tickets to their national events until Friday, like last week. People getting tickets to an event that's next weekend. That is, to put it bluntly, that's a level of incompetence that will always damage the game. And that's not to dig at anyone involved in it. I know that the people have been trying to make it work, and I do know that it's difficult, and there's loads of reasons why that they have issues. The point is that those issues are detrimental. It doesn't really matter how they've been caused. What matters is they're happening. And Poland, in my understanding, hasn't had that problem because their War Factory, in case you don't know, are I think it's fair to say they're professionals about it. War Factory are a professional business. I don't, from an outside perspective, see Mon struggle to appear that way. That's not to throw shade at any individual. It's
Oh. Yeah. Evan,
we'll see.
you're getting 40 something. You want to put that 90 out the back of your mind.
We will see.
Kind of hopes we'll kill a man, and
anyway, guys, appreciate you all tuning in today. I did say it was going to be a shorter episode, and we'll start winding down now. Thanks again for Carlo for popping on and giving your thoughts on the patch and everything like that. You'll probably notice as well we are simply doing less content. That's part and parcel with myself having to deal with some stuff at the moment. That means I'm just simply less able. Or I should probably reword that actually. The simple truth is, I've said this before and I think it's true now, the same way as Carlo, talking about the game just isn't that interesting or fun. I enjoy playing the game at the moment, but talking a lot about the game, it only ever makes me frustrated now. It doesn't actually do me any favors, and I just walk away from conversations now feeling more annoyed than I did when I started. So as a result, that's why I'm kind of slowing them down a little bit, because it's hard to keep talking about the game and lose passion for it, basically. You probably noticed that in the period of time where I've done less Tourney Grounds, I've played a hell of a lot more TTS games. And in the period of time where I was doing more Tourney Grounds, I did a hell of a lot less TTS games. Yeah. Anyway, that's just me. I know Carlo.
And I don't go on Tourney Ground or play games.
There's the real win. But yeah, I'm shooting off to America. I start my journey tomorrow night. Getting the train down to London, and then a flight across the Atlantic to land on Wednesday. So I'll be in Minnesota from Wednesday, kind of morning/midday. I won't be back in the UK until Tuesday morning. So there won't be a Tourney Ground next week at all. And yeah, apart from that, I wish you all...
One nerd. It's going all the way through America just to play.
I'm also going to do American things for like a day and a half or whatever.
A day and a half.
Eat a cow. like an actual just like raw cow, because that's what they do in America. They just take a cow from a field and they just eat it, and shoot some guns, but only like this. I'm not going to make a terrible joke about other things because that won't go down well. But yeah, yeah, that really wouldn't go down well. Yeah. All right then, guys. Well, do check out the events. You got obviously US Nationals this weekend. There's also there's a small event down in the UK that I know Joe was going to, and he wanted me to mention it. I'll probably find it. We've also got a 4-player event happening.
Is it the LGT?
It's not the LGT, no. It's Winter is Coming.
At last.
Oh no, it's the Reconquest of Swindon. It's just a small 10-player event in Swindon. Winter is Coming in Daventry this weekend as well. We've got a charity gaming con in Ostrich, which will be in Germany, I'm guessing. Battle at Castle Horst. Something in Spanish, I think. Another one in Spanish, Los Premios Hombres, event for the that's the Argentinian. Where Los Premios Hombres? Oh no, it was the other one, wasn't it? Huh. Oh well, there you go. Not at all what I thought that event was. Then obviously US Nationals, an event in Kentucky. Event in Louisville, Kentucky this weekend. Did you know about that one? Same weekend as US Nationals. There's also an event.
Is it a US Nationals 2024 qualifier?
It might be. What about the Northern Utah Open? That's also in Clearfield, Utah, on US this weekend. Which, just gonna say it, like, yeah, that's a thing. Some events in France, the Tron Betteraves, Battle Beyond the Wall in Piraeus in Greece, Bitwa o Smomoska in Krakow in Poland, Torneo Freak Wars Canción de Heblo Fuego, Madrid, Spain. That was absolutely butchered. Another event happening in Madrid, Spain. Spanish are having a lot of going on. An event in Russia, an event in Spain again, an event in Russia, Hungarian Nationals. That's not this weekend, next weekend though. Check out that one at some point. Let's check it out now quickly. See how many players they ended up getting. 0 players, but they've got a waiting list of, do the old brick, 54 divided by 3, 20, 17? No.
18.
18.
Jesus Christ.
18.
Top quality content as always.
Quality content. Anyway, yeah, so check all those things out. Do check out the Sunday Slaughter streams, which will be hosted probably by Stovetop throughout the weekend with a mix of other people and guests for US Nationals. Do check out Carlo's stream, where he's going to stream about 15 years of coding in all of about 1 minute. He's just going to log in and say shit and log out. And that's all you need to know. I'm joking. Yeah, and we will see you next time. Before we go, Carlo.
Mm-hmm.
How is the new site going? It's stalled. Cool.
I have been busy. I am actually, yes, I'm ramping back up towards working on it again. There's been a big hiatus. My weekends have been very busy. I've been out and about, and oh my fucking god, I did some work at work. Crazy.
I was there last Friday. I saw him working. Facts. First time ever.
It's crazy times, guys. End of days. But yes, I am. I've been ramping my thoughts back up to, it's been like there as this thing that I didn't want to get started again on it. But I've got the time and the capacity again right now. So my plans are to get ramped up on it again, get going, get pushing through the huge rebuild that I kind of set going. But you will not see it until 2024.
There's a present. There's a late Christmas present for 2024, guys. And when I say late, it might be August 2024. That's how late.
Yeah, no, I didn't even say you will see it you will not see it before 2024. Let's make it clear.
Carlo's just made
Who knows? Maybe I get super lucky and time it with one of the many, many, many seasonal updates that we expect to get every 6 months from now on out.
There is zero hope of that happening, and you know it. Right. Well, thanks a lot for tuning in, guys. We will not see you next week. Maybe see you in 2 weeks' time then, and enjoy your gaming. See you later. Ready? Aim!
There's too many.
Anyone see my mammoth?
Stubby!